So what's the single most overlooked factor in any company's success? It's not the strategy, it's not the technology, it's something that sits right at the very heart of every organization, and that's the quality of its relationships.
You've heard this a million times, right? People are our greatest asset. It's plastered all over corporate websites, it's in the annual reports, it's a classic mantra that sounds absolutely fantastic. But here's the tough question we all have to ask ourselves. If you look past the slogans, really look at where companies spend their time and their money, do their actions actually prove it?
And this brings us to what we can call the people paradox. There's this huge, gaping disconnect between what organizations say about their people and how they actually invest in them.
So, where does all the investment go? Well, companies spend a ton on systems. Think about it. Complex policies and procedures, endless surveys and metrics, complicated performance management software, individual development plans, all the tangible, measurable stuff.
But here's the kicker. All those systems, as important as they might be, their success, the return on every single dollar you spend, it all hinges on one simple thing: human collaboration. Because if the people using the system can't work well together, the system itself is basically useless.
Which brings us to our next point. We've got to start looking at our workplaces in a totally different way. Forget the official process maps for a second and just see what's really there: a hidden, living network of human connections. Here's a really simple way to think about it. No matter what your role is, you have internal customers. These are the people who rely on you to get their job done. And, of course, you have internal suppliers, the people you rely on to do your job.
And you can really see the two perspectives side by side here. On the left, you've got that typical systems view, a cold flowchart of inputs and outputs. But on the right, you have the human reality, a network of actual people. The success of that flowchart depends entirely on the health of that human network.
Okay, so let's get practical. Where does this failure to invest in relationships really show up the most? We're going to look at two of the most critical make-or-break moments in any employee's journey: the day they arrive and the day they decide to leave.
Think about when someone new starts at your company. That initial onboarding experience, it has a massive impact. It pretty much dictates how quickly they become productive, how they feel about their new job, and what they fundamentally believe your company culture is all about.
So often, onboarding is just this mountain of paperwork and compliance videos. But what if, instead, we focused on building key relationships from day one? It could be as simple as this: have the new person meet their key internal customers and suppliers and just ask these 3 questions. This simple act builds clarity and connection right away.
So that's how people should start their journey with you. But what about how they end it? Understanding why people actually leave, well, that's just as revealing, if not more so.
Research from places like Gallup and Culture Amp gives us a long list of reasons why people quit. They leave because of bad managers. They leave because there's no leadership or no chance to grow. But if you look closer, what's the common thread running through almost all of these? Yep, problematic relationships.
The source for this explainer shares this incredibly powerful personal story, and it's all summed up in this one quote. Just imagine for a second. You've just handed in your resignation, and your boss looks at you and says this. Your first thought isn't, "Oh, wow, thanks." It's frustration. It's, "If you had such big plans for me, why am I only hearing about them now?"
And that's the whole issue in a nutshell, isn't it? It was the right conversation, but it happened at the absolute wrong time. Investing in relationships has to be proactive. It can't be some reactive scramble when someone's already got one foot out the door.
Now, if you're still sitting there thinking this is all just nice to have, fluffy stuff, well, let's raise the stakes, because this is quickly moving from just being good practice to becoming a legal imperative. You really need to get familiar with this term, psychosocial hazards. These are factors in the workplace that can actually cause psychological harm. And crucially, organizations now have what's called a positive duty to proactively manage and control these risks.
So what are these hazards exactly? Well, when you start looking at the official lists, a very clear pattern emerges. A whole lot of them are rooted directly in the quality, or lack thereof, of relationships at work. The connection is just undeniable. Take a look at this list: aggressive behavior, bullying, harassment, constant conflict. These are all defined psychosocial hazards, and they are all fundamentally failures of workplace relationships.
And this brings us to the final and maybe most critical point, the relationship ROI.
Because beyond the culture, beyond the legal stuff, there is a clear, hard-nosed business case for making connection a priority.
It's really straightforward. The results of investing in relationships are clear and they're measurable. Staff engagement and well-being shoot up. People stay longer, which boosts retention. Productivity and efficiency actually increase because collaboration is just smoother. And, as we've just seen, you're taking care of your legal duties.
Which leaves us with one last very simple question. When investing in relationships clearly benefits your people, your performance, and your legal compliance, why on earth wouldn't you?